Welcome back to Fresh Faces, New Ideas. My name is David. If you like this video or you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. Now, in this video, we're going to go very briefly over the gaslighting that just happened yesterday. So, yesterday there was a hearing held in the House of Congress with some of the DC police and former officials in charge of security about what happened on January 6th, which was an insurrection. So, currently, we don't have a committee, a group that's designed to look into this specifically, like a 9/11 style commission. It's being blocked by Republicans. But here's what I don't understand. Some of the things you're going to hear and some of the things that have been said would be answered in that committee. So there's a couple of narratives that are currently debunked but keep coming up. One is that it wasn't actually Trump supporters, besides the fact that they were saying, fight for Trump, we're patriots for Trump, we're doing it because Trump told us to. They were wearing MAGA hats, they carried the Trump flag, things like that. And some of them came from the Trump rally. And the other is that they were peaceful, and that it was actually Antifa doing this, right? So that's what they said. Both of those things, if you had a commission, could answer that question. It would tell you who was there, because we know a whole bunch of them have been arrested. I think it's like 400 of them have been arrested. Because part of the advantage of who this crowd of people were is they didn't wear masks. They live streamed a lot of it. They didn't hide that they did this thing. They went home and they were happy. The lawmaker, the House lawmaker from like West Virginia, Derek Evans is in the Capitol. Derek Evans got arrested. So let's look at some of this gaslighting, and we're gonna see a couple videos. It's Jody Hirsch, I think his name is, Paul Gosar, and one other. We're just gonna look at the quote for the other one. I didn't pull up the video, so let's take a look at it. Okay, so these are the quotes we're gonna show you. It's Andrew Clyde. So the Andrew Clyde statement is that it was a normal tourist visit, and that it was a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage for those entering the Capitol and walk through the sanctuary hall shows people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January 6th, you think it'd be a normal tourist visit. So that's what his statement was. This is Paul Gosar. He was talking about Ashley Babbitt. We're going to see that. This is actually a really stupid one. Ralph Norman said, I don't know who did a poll to say that they were Trump supporters. Besides fight for Trump, stop the steal, wearing Trump hats, wearing the Trump flags. So we're going to look at Andrew part got Jody Hirsch. So the first part of the video is him saying, oh, Trump didn't start it, didn't send them there. They were actually there. He was actually giving the speech at the time. The speech was peaceful. And then he was talking about Sitnik, who, look, the reporting originally said that Sitnik died from blunt force trauma. And then came out that he died because he had 2 blood clots that led to a stroke. I don't know how these two things, I don't know. I have to imagine that the blood clots were caused by stress and stuff, but I can't, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say that. But listen to what he's saying after that.
In fact, his mother has since come out saying he
this is
died
him still
of
talking
a
about
stroke. In fact, it was Trump supporters who lost their lives that day, not Trump supporters who...
Now, this pulls back the argument that what I just showed you, the Representative Norman said, that they weren't Trump supporters. He just said they're Trump supporters. So if they were Trump supporters there, and they were the ones who lost their lives, wouldn't that imply that they were the ones rioting? Yes, that's how reality works.
For taking the lives of others. You go down the list here. Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed by a Capitol police officer.
Ashley Babbitt is the only person who was killed by a police officer. What happened there, we have the video of this. There was 2 officers, and basically the mob was screaming at them, yelling at them to move, and ultimately they did. So they were punching it. They were punching the glass, and eventually they broke through the glass. And on the other side of that glass were lawmakers. And the lawmakers were being evacuated. And Ashley Babbitt tries to climb through the window, and one of the Secret Service members shoots her. And we know this. We've seen the video of this. So Ashley Babbitt, despite what you will hear from the right wing, was not just taking a leisurely stroll through Congress. And it wasn't because, oh, it's our precious lawmakers who are doing this. What she was doing was illegal in the case, and these are the same people who backed the blue. This was a call-for case of use of force. If that officer had not done that, more of them would have come through and they would have tried to kill law enforcement. So this argument that the only people who died were Trump supporters is because the people who did their job were the law enforcement officers who attempted to stop the insurrection.
Kevin Greason suffered a heart attack. Roseanne Boylan reportedly was crushed by rioters.
So now they're rioters. So who killed her if she was crushed by rioters? The Trump supporters.
And Benjamin Phillips died of a stroke. So the narrative needs to be cleared up. The truth.
They were the ones attacking the Capitol. Now, this is Paul Gosar. We're not going to watch the whole thing. It's also worth remembering three things about Paul Gosar every time you talk about it. One, Paul Gosar's whole family, when he was running for office, put out ads saying, "Do not elect our brother, he is a lunatic." Paul Gosar spoke at the white nationalist rally, the white nationalist CPAC, before going to CPAC this year. Nobody said anything. They'll say, "Oh, David, you're making it up." Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi. Nick Fuentes was pushing that event. And three, Paul Gosar is one of the people who pushed the Stop the Steal. He's one of the organizers of the Stop the Steal rally.
Mr. Gosar.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Outright propaganda and lies are being used to unleash the national security state against law-abiding U.S. citizens, especially Trump voters. The FBI is fishing through homes of veterans and citizens with no criminal records and restricting the liberties of individuals that have never been accused of a crime.
Part of this, so what he's talking about is two things. The FBI is looking through their records because a lot of these dumb fucks, and they are dumb fucks, posted shit online about either ready to cause violence or about to cause violence or, "Oh, I was there and we did this thing." As for stopping them from restricting their rights, they're restricted from no-fly list because what they did was an act of terror, and terrorists are not allowed to fly. If you are advocating for terrorists to be able to fly, that's a different conversation, isn't it, Paul Gosar?
Mr. Biden calls January 6th the worst attack since the Civil War. A president was impeached for his alleged role in that riot. It was reported early, totally unconfirmed, that an armed insurrection, quote, beat a police officer to death with a fire extinguisher. The government has even enlisted Americans to turn in their own neighbors.
Now, let's be clear. This is not McCarthyism where there's a scary communist around the corner. What they're saying is, here's a picture of a dumb fuck who was at the Capitol when this happened. Do you know who this is? And if you do, please contact us so we can look into whether this person is who you say it is. What they're doing is what happens all the time. I don't know if you've ever been to New York City, but that's part of what See Something, Say Something is. You have to enlist the people for this because this was such a massive attack.
Federal prosecutor Michael Sherwin on CBS News 60 Minutes continued the, quote, shock and awe, end of quote, strategy. Many of my Democrat colleagues oppose the, quote, shock and awe, end of quote, strategy in Iraq.
Now, I shouldn't have to explain to you how fucking dumb that is. He's arguing that what we did in Iraq is the equivalent to what they're doing here. Now, shock and awe was part of the push. They said, okay, we're just going to go bomb the shit out of them and we'll be done. We'll just shock them with how powerful our military is and they'll just roll over. How'd that work out? Didn't work out very well. That has nothing to do. The shock and awe of this is the fact that these people were so blatant with how they did this and thought they got away with it.
We should similarly oppose its application against American citizens. Mr. Rosen, You claimed that the DOJ would, quote, spare no resources, end of quote. Mr. Rosen, did the DOJ confiscate any firearms from suspects charged with breaching the Capitol on January 6th?
Congressman, as I alluded to in my opening remarks, there are certain limitations about pending investigations and prosecutions.
Mr. Rosen, I'll be looking forward to asking that question of people that can answer it from the Capitol Police. And
Now, technically, the people in the Capitol did not have firearms, at least as far as we know that it has been revealed. They did get people who had firearms and bombs prior to that and after that were arrested for having these things. But as footage just came out either after this, the hearing, or today, this morning, I don't remember when exactly the footage was released, we saw them assaulting people. They used 2x4s. They used their own tasers. It's if you look on Twitter, it's under I got one. CNN has the video. You can see the officers fighting them. These weren't peaceful, unarmed people. That's not what happened.
the FBI, but the answer is no. 0 firearms from suspects charged with breaching the Capitol. Mr. Rosen, was Officer Sicknick killed by rioters with a fire extinguisher?
Congressman, Officer Sicknick was there acting in the line of duty and went into harm's way. And I think as others have said, he acted as one of many heroes on that day.
Mr. Rosen, I don't take the hero lightly. He did heroically, but he died of natural causes. Mr. Rosen, was a single individual...
So look, I don't understand what this thought line is. He's still dead. I mean, yes, they didn't directly kill him, but what about the officers who lost his eye, or the other 140 officers who were hurt? Do they not count because they didn't get killed?
Individual at or outside the Capitol on January 6th, have they been charged with the crime of insurrection?
Again, if you're asking me about charges that were either made, pending, or being investigated,
Mr. Rosen,
I'm sorry, I'm
thank you
just
once
not in a
again.
position to address those.
Once again, Mr. Rosen, to my knowledge, not a single person has been charged with a crime of insurrection.
I think that actually might be true, and I don't know why. I think maybe it's harder to stick. But just because they're not charged with insurrection doesn't mean what they didn't do wasn't an insurrection. If you murder somebody and they charge you with manslaughter, you still murdered a person. I think it's depending on what they can charge.
Mr. Rosen, do you recall the name of the young lady, a veteran wrapped in an American flag, that was killed in the U.S. Capitol?
I do. Her name was Ashley Babbitt.
Yes, Ashley Babbitt. Was Ashley Babbitt armed?
Again, Congressman, I mean to be respectful of
Mr.
your
Rosen,
observations, but I just don't
Mr.
want to
Rosen,
talk about
Mr.
individual
Rosen,
situations
I'm
or...
clearly reclaiming my time. Mr. Rosen, no, she wasn't. She was wrapped in a U.S. flag.
So look, I'm pretty sure that breaks flag code, but also just because you're wrapped in a U.S. flag doesn't mean you can't do terrible things. There's war crimes. There's all soldiers who commit war crimes all the time. You could be wrapped in just because you're wrapped in a U.S. flag doesn't protect you. She was doing the wrong thing. The officer who killed her deserves a goddamn medal. And I will stand by that.
Was the death of Ashley Babbitt a homicide?
Congressman, I'm not trying to be unhelpful here, but I just cannot comment.
I understand, but I mean, reclaiming my time, as the death certificate says, it was a homicide.
This is actually true as well. A lot of what happens sometimes during law enforcement, when law enforcement encounters people and somebody is killed by a law enforcement officer, it is declared a homicide. But they're considered lawful homicides because the police officers have the state sanction on force, so they are allowed to, in cases, kill people. Not every case. Now let's be clear. There are differences. When there is a massive difference between somebody like Ashley Babbitt and somebody like Philando Castile, or Ashley Babbitt and Botham Jean, or Ashley Babbitt and Eric Gardner, or Ashley Babbitt and Daniel Schaefer. These are all differences. Those were all homicides. All of what I said were homicides. But there's a difference between them. And it's not just that she was white. Daniel Schaefer was white.
Who executed Ashley Babbitt?
Ashley Babbitt was not executed.
Congressman, I'm just going to have to say the same thing here, that I don't want to get into the specific facts of
Thank you very much.
investigations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now, Chief Conte.
All right, we're done watching Paul Gosar now. And then we're going to go to Andrew Clyde. This is his quote. There is no insurrection, he said, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bull-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statutory Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the sanctions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January 6th, you'd think it was a normal tourist event. So, look, the follow-up to this obviously is, are you evacuated under threat of death every single day in the Capitol? Well, not now, because there's more strict rules on who can go in the Capitol between COVID and this. Anyway, and if so, why is this a big deal then? But it's not. It's also, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January 6th, you'd actually think it was a normal tourist visit. Just because when they got in, they stayed between the lines, didn't mean they stole things. They took shits and smeared it on the wall. Doesn't mean they broke into things. Doesn't mean because they were walking through the sanctions, they weren't attempting to do something illegal. They were still out there looking for Nancy Pelosi. They were still out there looking for Mike Pence. And God knows what would have happened had they found them. They probably would have murdered them because they were very clear that that was their goal. Now, look. What happened on January 6th was Trump supporters attacked the Capitol in order to stop the lawful certification of the election that Donald Trump lost. What they did was illegal, and every single one of them should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The fact that more people did not die is both a testament to the restraint that officers have, but don't use when they're faced with actual peaceful protests, like we saw when Black Lives Matter protested there, and they tear gassed the shit out of them. Versus this group of people. There is a lot here. We need to know what happened. We need to know how much it was planned. We need to know if lawmakers were part of it. People like Paul Gosar. People like Lauren Boebert, who was tweeting out Nancy Pelosi's location during it. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is now calling the Squad, the jihadist conference, because they don't agree with what Israel is doing. Even though she met with the people who later stormed the Capitol the day before. What Republicans are doing is trying to whitewash what happened. If this had been on the other side, they would not have stopped yelling about this. You don't get away with crime because it's your side. That's not how this works. Now, please like and subscribe to this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.